And I look up and I see on the cross up there that light looks like a sun.
Does it scare you?
It's a terrible thing because I see two beings crouching and they're very ugly, very monstrous.
To you, were they demons? And the apparitions in Fatima are very similar to everything you're describing. Are they related to these alien or interdimensional being apparitions?
The most interesting thing is that the ones who saw Our Lady of Fatima were the little shepherds. Jacinto didn't hear the messages, only the girls could hear them. This phenomenon usually involves girls, often children or teens. It wasn't the same or similar to what you see in movies or cartoons. I believe it would be what churches call demons. I think that's why the Bible forbids us from messing with rituals and spirits. It's our inability as humans to discern what's a good being from a bad one, an angel from a demon.
But does the kingdom of God announced by Jesus have a place in your perception of what these beings are?
Another sighting I had in the Atacama Desert is similar to how you often depict saints and angels with a halo over their heads. He always says, "Don't be afraid."
Angels always say, don't be afraid when they appear. And you mentioned wounds. It's impossible not to associate wounds with the wounds of Jesus Christ. Are you making some kind of comparison? What is the Virginia ET?
He had characteristics of demons from the Bible. When you look back, a bed all scratched up with symbols.
Do you think they're trying to send you a sign?
I believe so.
And what is that sign? I see all the time people who say they forgot to subscribe to the channel or that they didn't even remember to do it. So let me ask you a favor, subscribe to the channel. And if you really like our show, turn on the notification bell and share this episode with at least 3, 4, 5 people if you can. So look, thank you very much for subscribing and for being part of our community and the history of this channel. My guest is an adventurous researcher who spends sleepless nights in the most remote places, searching for beings that could be from another planet or another dimension. He has a spiritual belief in these phenomena, which, in his understanding, are interdimensional, caused by spirits. He even makes a connection between these events and some Christian phenomena, such as the apparition of mothers in Fatima. In today's program, we will also talk about people who say they have been abducted by beings from other planets. And we will understand why many people no longer talk about ETs or aliens, but rather about UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. It was to make contact with these beings or phenomena that he decided to leave the comfort of traditional science to face the unknown in the forest or desert. And also by searching through rare and secret documents in mysterious cases like the so-called Virginia ET, RONY VERNET was able to get involved. Welcome, thank you.
Are you from Rio?
I'm from Rio de Janeiro, yes.
Rio, the capital?
Yes.
I'm from Rio too.
I was born on Governador Island. I went through Copacabana, but now I'm in Barra. Flamengo, I walked a bit around the South Zone. Now I'm there in Barra da Tijuca.
But your real place is Valença.
My research place, right?
Move closer to the microphone and get comfortable. There's water for you, okay?
Oh no, it's alright.
Valença is the most important place for you. Today it is.
Since I live in Rio de Janeiro, the nearest place for this research is in the countryside. Since at least the 1980s, the Valença area, specifically the Conservatoria district, has had many reported sightings.
Have you been there?
I've been to Conservatoria.
Land of Serra.
Yes, land of Serra.
Wonderful orange cake.
Yes, there, fantastic. And you get there and it changes your environment, your emotions.
The most beautiful sky I've seen was in Conservatoria. That explains it, right?
Yes, between Conservatoria and Santo Isabel do Rio Preto, another Valença district. Between those two districts, there's an area called Serra da Beleza, where for many years, for decades at least, several phenomena have been happening. And there's a long history there related to quilombos, the area and the history of slavery in Brazil.
Will you link this to the phenomena? Is there a connection?
Yes, there is. There is, because these descendants of slaves and the slaves themselves had been seeing these phenomena for a long time, and the farmers, as a result of that region, had also been seeing these phenomena for a long time. Even the phenomena we see today were seen back then. They just called them by different names. Mother of Gold, when asked about anomalous phenomena or UFOs, they deny it, but mention seeing the Mother of Gold.
So people who are alive today, yes.
Some descendants, nearly or over 100 years old, saw the Mother of Gold.
The Mother of Gold, what is it?
The Mother of Gold, it would be an anomalous phenomenon, what we call an orb, right? Which would be a luminous sphere. Why is it called Mother of Gold? Because it typically appears where gold is buried. So, in the past there were princes with slaves, there were during the time of slavery. There was the matter of you being buried there with gold, and also the matter of searching for gold. Also because those slaves suffered a lot, went through everything they went through, and they were looking for some wealth. So they were always searching for gold, right? So they were always paying attention to these phenomena. Where did that orange sphere of light come down? Like it was a ball of fire, but it was a little different where there was gold buried. So it would go from place to place where there was gold. It also goes where there's gold, as if it's taking the gold away.
That means these beings are looking for gold here on Earth.
There are several interpretations, one being that these beings are looking for minerals here. That would be a more technological explanation. I prefer an explanation that's now called interdimensional, which is considered more spiritual or esoteric. But scientifically, we use the term interdimensional more often. These could be beings from a parallel reality, such as spirits, or more technically, survivors of consciousness. Some became attached here and are, quote, guarding the gold in that place. There are many reports from people that in the past it was very common for people when they passed away to be buried along with their jewelry. And where they were buried, you would see that light, that orange sphere guarding that kind of material. So that's why there's this connection between luminous phenomena and what would be survivors of consciousness or spirits or whatever name you want to give it, interdimensionals.
What did you see that the other almost 8,200,000,000 inhabitants of planet Earth didn't see?
Luminous phenomena, especially the Man of Gold, are common there. If you visit, you'll see it. It might not be the first time or the second, but on the third, fourth, fifth, or even the 10th time, you'll see it eventually. These phenomena are in the distant sky like people remember UFOs. They are there, close to the ground, near the trees, as if they were part of nature, and from time to time they turn on and off. They appear, take a spin, an intelligent spin. Sometimes they approach, but when you take out your phone, they back off or even vanish. They often emerge from trees, the ground, or rivers, showing a strong connection to nature. I saw this frequently there. She's truly close to nature, among and atop the trees.
Do you also call her Mother of Gold?
She's usually called Mother of Gold. I don't use it myself, but you hear it so often it becomes a habit.
But describe it for me. I'm a writer. I like to imagine what it's like. Exactly when you see the phenomenon in front of you, what do you see?
It usually has this kind of phenomenon. It usually has a very white, opaque center, and it goes out to the edges, having a color that we call orange, yellow, red, which is what people call it. That's why it's called a fireball, right? Because it has a colorful outline and a very creamy, opaque center. This Mother of Gold phenomenon is one of the most common phenomena Americans refer to as an orb, right? Usually the orbs, right?
But you also saw two beings at least once? Yes. What were those beings like?
One in Serra, Beleza in 2021. In fact, it was during the peak of the pandemic. If you look at the peak of COVID fatalities, it was at that time that it happened. I think it might be related since it never happened again. Yeah, I saw it on a cross, exactly on a cross. There's a cross there made in honor of the father of the owner of the area, whose name is Arnaldo.
Land there, from the land.
It's a cross that's 12 meters tall, with 4 meters buried and 8 meters above the surface for construction. He made it to honor his father, the property's owner. Being very religious, he created the cross as a tribute. I took pictures at that cross while holding a solo vigil on the property with just him. Looking at the second and third photos, I saw a beautiful starry sky with no clouds. When I look at the second, third photo, there was exactly that Mother of Gold, right? That glowing sphere, orange, almost golden then. When I take the third photo, I look at the camera and say, look, how strange, it must be in the picture. Then I check with the naked eye. It was there and covered the entire large cross. Like I said, that's all.
Was it in front or behind the cross?
Yes, in front of the cross at the base.
At the base.
It was so strong it covered the entire cross, so I couldn't see it anymore. It looked like a sun, really big, like a sun to me. That was the phenomenon's most distinctive feature. In most of these phenomena, you can look at it without hurting your eyes, like it's a big sun, but you can look at it so your brain kind of gets confused. You think, I shouldn't be seeing this like that, with that brightness, without it affecting my eyes, and that's exactly what I was seeing at that moment. And then I got scared by that. I said, wow, and then I started taking pictures. More pictures. This one
is one of them, or at least did it happen there?
This is exactly an illustration of what it would look like if we saw in full high definition, in high resolution, a Mãe do Ouro like this.
There are many images and balls here.
This representation is an illustration based on what appears in Acre when I was there. Let's discuss this soon, as they're sometimes seen walking together in groups. And we have the legend of Boitata, which would be the fire snake, which could eventually, I believe, be a sighting like the one that was seen. When these lights get close, they resemble a fire serpent moving through the forest.
The legend of Boitata. It would be a being.
Yes, Father Anchieta, when he wrote his first letters from São Vicente. Here, regarding the discovery of Brazil back in 1500, and a little after 1500, to report to the Kingdom of Portugal what was being seen here. He reports one of the phenomena, anomalous ones. He reports the Boitata, and he says it would be this fire snake. Which would be a phenomenon that I attribute. That could be this today.
So did Father Anchieta see an extraterrestrial being?
I believe it's not extraterrestrial, and here's why. These are phenomena that, to me, and the way I saw it, they come from nature. They are present in nature. It's as if they were already here. It might be extraterrestrial, or what we call ultra-terrestrial. It lives here now. This is its home. And there's a connection with the elements of nature, because they come out of the elements, they come out of the ground, they come out of the vegetation, sometimes they come out of the trees, they come out of the rivers. So there's something about nature connecting them. Sometimes they need these natural elements to appear. So this is an illustration of what appears in Acre, very similar to what happens in Serra, alright? So these beings, as I said, he appeared what? From this ball of light, I started taking pictures, then grabbed my binoculars for a closer look. The cross wasn't there anymore. There was something black covering that cross, and when I looked there, there were two beings, one on each side of the cross. They were black, thin and crouching, completely dark beings. And they were moving, going back and forth around the cross, right? Appearing, coming out from behind the cross.
As if they were hiding there.
Hiding, but the cross...
So thin, could they hide behind it?
They have about... The cross is 8 meters, so it has about, I would say, 60 centimeters of...
60 centimeters, that's about this much. It's wide.
So...
They could hide behind them.
And not exactly hiding completely, but when they were moving, I could see them. When they were behind, I could see the edge of their bodies. They weren't fully behind the cross, but it seemed like they were hiding. That's how I felt.
Did they have 2 arms and legs?
They had 2 long arms, but I couldn't see their legs because they were crouching. It wasn't the same or similar to what you see in movies or cartoons. It was totally different because it was completely black. It had a frightening look. It was so scary that I forgot what it looked like. I can't describe the face because I was traumatized then. Because I was seeing a light and you don't expect to see a being, and when the light goes out, there are these 2 beings. And what scared me the most was that they were exactly in this movement of coming out and going in and appearing from behind the cross, as if they knew I was there. And trying to pretend they weren't looking at me, so I panicked. Bye.
And were they really looking at you?
Yes, because the binoculars magnified 20 times when I looked through them. I saw them as if they were about 15 to 20 and a half away at most.
There was light around you?
It wasn't just off, it was completely dark.
Do you think they would see you even without light because of some power?
I believe they knew I wasn't there because this phenomenon has a very strong connection with human consciousness. So, intentions, that's why there's this connection we call interdimensional, because intentions, and soon we'll talk about traumas, these are things that, why isn't it visible to everyone? It's due to a person-to-person consciousness link. The phenomenon is real, and evidence can be collected, but it largely depends on human consciousness and intentions to manifest. And look, I was in an environment on a huge farm, and they appeared exactly in my photo frame.
If someone was beside you, they'd see it too.
For sure.
For sure.
Me. Shared experiences observed by several people.
So, The fact that you say it's connected to consciousness doesn't mean it happens in your consciousness. No.
It means my consciousness creates this being's appearance. But once it is materialized and manifested, I can take a picture. That's why it shows up in the photo. It appeared there at that moment, so others could see it too.
So, do you believe it was your presence that made them come?
Yes, I think it was a combination. Which one? I attribute this result to it. I was there to see and research that. That was my intention. And there's a point I was framing in that. I was focused at that moment on that cross, taking pictures so I could give the owner a gift of those photos I was taking that night. Linda, it's a huge farm. And why would they appear exactly in my photo frame at the exact moment I was taking the picture? So, for me, there's no explanation. It would be too coincidental if it wasn't precisely because I was focused there. And these beings, they didn't have a pleasant face. They were monstrous. I didn't want to look through the binoculars anymore. I got so scared, so traumatized that I didn't want to look through the binoculars again, and I started shaking with fear. I turned on the camera in video mode without focusing or adjusting settings, just to have some kind of record. And I run out to look for the owner, running. Afraid, very afraid, because I felt they knew I was there. I said, look, it appeared here. I'm watching through binoculars as they move in and out from behind the cross. They know I'm here. And what was I afraid of? They can come down, show up here. If they showed up there, they can show up right here in front of me. So it's that fear of the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen. I start running after switching the camera to video mode. When was that? That's my last memory. These beings start to levitate, floating as if they were specters, and they start levitating around the cross. They were so dark they sometimes blocked out the 8-meter cross, even darker than night.
They changed shape when they started to levitate.
What I remember seeing through the binoculars is that they weren't a physical material structure, like this matter we're seeing here. They were fluid. It was like a liquid, something malleable, compressible.
Like oil, maybe?
Like oil, only more well-defined. But it's a substance that kept vibrating. They were like a contained fluid. Let's put it this way. Take a plastic, transparent soda bottle and you keep squeezing it. It's like that. That's the closest I can get to what I saw. So it wasn't normal matter. It was something like a fluid that had a shape. Or a very dense gas, or a thicker liquid, like oil, for example, a more viscous oil. At certain times, they make this kind of movement. And I had the impression at the time that maybe it was just to scare me. That's how I felt. It might not be that obviously, but what I felt was as if it was feeding on, enjoying my feeling of fear, of terror, and moving away from the front of the cross as if trying to scare me with their actions.
So they were evil beings, we could say malignant, yeah?
That's how I interpreted it. It might not be, but that's what I understood at that moment.
Forces of evil,
I believe so.
Do you believe in the idea of the devil, for example?
Yes, they do.
Would be diabolical.
I believe it would be. What the church calls demons, the main point is that when we talk about demons, which is a name the Catholic Church gives, for example, when we mention extraterrestrials, a term some ufologists use, there's no consensus as each group holds onto its name and criticizes others. It's the same group that discusses spirits or, for example, another group that talks about forest fireballs, basically folklore beings. Everyone stays in their own space, not speaking to anyone else. So that's why I think that today the terms we're using, the United States in a way are getting it right. It's about standardizing names that nobody used.
For example?
Non-human intelligence, they say extraterrestrials instead of aliens, and non-human intelligence instead of demons. Interdimensional origin. They don't use the spiritual or esoteric worlds.
Okay, but explain interdimensional then, yes.
I think interdimensional refers to an esoteric spiritual world, or in physics terms, another reality dimension. A parallel reality, a world like ours.
Like spirits.
Like the spiritual world. Or like what the Bible might say about hell, for example. That could also be an interpretation. Purgatory. So it would be this parallel world and these beings, and our Earth here would be like that. Now, I like to explain myself. Picture an onion peel's many layers. Earth is just one, with other layers representing different realities. In physics, we often accept that the theory can be valid and might be proven later. This could be a simulation. We might be in a simulated reality.
Are living here?
I believe it was created by a creation of God. If you think about it, we're close to creating the first non-human intelligence, smarter than man, which is artificial intelligence. And I believe that God made the creations, and within those creations, there was some possibility for this world we live in to be created.
A creation that somehow strayed from its intended path.
It could be. It could be a rebel. It could be a rebel. Because if you look at the material world, there are so many things that can lead us astray, so many things to distract us, right? So we have a lot of things, a lot of temptation to lead us astray, whether it's money, power, drugs, and many other things. And we can, sex anyway, that can make us stray from our path. So for that reason, I see that maybe this world we're in can, of course, have a part of creation that we know from nature, divine creation, good things. But there are many downfalls, as we call them, so this could be a simulated reality with some tests for humans. And within this simulated reality, if it is a certain layer of reality that is inferior, in other words, if this is a big material dream that we are in and can perceive through our human body and our consciousness, there could be another reality being controlled by these beings who created this here. That would be the second layer of the onion skin. Or there could also be one below ours, right? And these layers can cross at some point. The big mystery is why these layers are crossing, why these beings are showing up here at some point, why do they materialize? Because and that's the big trick here, which is still a taboo here in the West. It's that when we talk about the spiritual world or things like interdimensional reality, people see the parallel world as ethereal and invisible, believing it doesn't affect us. I think it could be a higher reality, hierarchically superior to ours, and that would explain miracles, which are things that are impossible in the material world. If an unidentified flying object shows physical traits impossible by our physics, or you have a materialization performed by a person, which is considered a miracle, like a saint crying, for example, or something like that, or a stone that mysteriously appears on a roof. This happens often. Maybe this is an intervention from that world, able to create anything here.
But let me understand something. You said that, if I'm not mistaken, if I didn't misunderstand, that they are evil beings and that they would have created our world. That contradicts what's in Genesis, the idea that God created this world in his image and likeness from clay. What you're saying, does it really contradict Genesis?
Here's what I think. I don't doubt that God created this, even if it was through one of his creations. In a way, he created this, directly or indirectly. And man was created in his image and likeness. But I think there are beings that maybe didn't create this whole world, or created certain types of attractions here for humans to distract them. It could be something like that too, a self-interpretation. So either the material world is a creation of God that rebelled, or the human being would be a creation of God who is in this world. Or do you have some components of this world? This simulated reality was created by other beings to distract and divert us. By free will, they were somehow allowed to do this. So I think there are these two interpretations.
This is somewhat like the Jewish concept of Ha-Satan, known as Satan. Who is the accuser, the one who comes to create chaos? Is that it?
I believe so. To manipulate, create chaos, and divert. That's what I think, since this phenomenon is highly manipulative. We can later get into the issue of direct contact with beings. There is a very strong aspect of manipulation. There is a very strong aspect of the introduction, the materialization of implants, for example, in people. There are the wounds which are sometimes burns inflicted on people. In some cases, they can be wounds. In some cases, they can actually be injuries. And then comes the question of discernment, whether it can be something good or something bad. But the fact is that in this apparition I didn't feel anything good. I didn't feel peace. I felt a lot of fear. I felt terror. They weren't pleasant. They were monstrous.
Was this the most important one you saw?
It was one of the clearest. There was one in the Atacama Desert involving beings and multiple witnesses, which I can discuss. I believe these beings appeared. First, my awareness and intention to observe and research there kept me focused on that point. And second, because it would be a bad thing. I don't have any explanation for it to be something bad for me regarding myself in my conscience, the things I was doing, etc. At that time, not just me, but everyone was going through a very sad moment.
In 2021,
June 2021 marked the peak of COVID deaths. And at that moment, I went to Serra de Beleza to clear my mind. To go to a place where there was no one, nothing but nature, to try to escape from that.
you weren't looking for anything.
You weren't looking for anything related to beings.
Extraterrestrials.
I wasn't. I went to clear my mind, and of course I took the opportunity to do some research. Yes. And I really believe that this being, which to me would be malevolent, they appeared. The number matters, right? I saw at least 2, but there might be 3 based on what I saw flying there. And they always appear in 3s. That's pretty common. Not always, but most of the time they appear in 3s. Is that some kind of blasphemy, something like that?
I'm just curious, since 3 represents the Trinity in Christianity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
And usually when they appear in close encounters or abductions, etc., it's usually 3 beings. In many cases, it's 3 beings. I believe it's a kind of blasphemy or mockery, something like that.
Why do you say blasphemy?
Because 3 is usually considered sacred, right? You have the sanctification of the Trinity, you have this whole Christian thing related to that number, and them coming in 3s would be kind of an antithesis to that, right?
When you spoke, you mentioned hell. We talked about purgatory, you agreed. But what about the kingdom of God announced by Jesus? Does it have a place in your perception of what these beings are?
Yes. Like everything in the universe, I believe there can be both good and bad intelligences. And they are constantly maybe influencing us one way or another, trying to help us or lead us astray. However, I believe that most of the materializations of beings are malevolent, based on the behavior I've seen and from people who have come to me. But of course, there could be a bias. Why? When something bad happens, does the person ask for help? When it's something good for them, sometimes they don't tell anyone, they keep it to themselves. So this statistic might be a little biased. But I do believe that this world here is a world that is constantly being influenced by these entities. By these beings that most of the time would be invisible, and quite often they materialize here. The big mystery is why they are materializing. And to conclude my reasoning, I believe that at that moment they appeared because of this energy. That general awareness we all had at that time regarding the pandemic, regarding the fatalities and so on. That may have created this window for these beings to appear here. And the curious thing about the cross, right? On that cross, which is something that...
He didn't end up on the cross by accident.
I don't think so. The cross once reminded people of something negative. The church changed its view using Jesus' sacrifice as a symbol, right? If you think about it, there was much suffering on the cross, and people still use crosses at crossroads for rituals. One meaning of the cross is that it serves as a portal. I believe that maybe this has something to do with it. Whether it's for good beings before they appear there, or for bad beings, demons, to appear. Depending on the context of the people, the context of the time. But I believe that this context of the time in 2021 is what contributed to this happening. Another sighting I had in the Atacama Desert was 2 years later. Some people from the Catholic University of Chile invited me to observe long-standing phenomena in the desert. And luminous phenomena. And on that day we observed several phenomena, luminous humanoid beings in that desert. One was very beautiful, and there's a photo of it. I'm not sure if you have it yet, but maybe we can get it later. It's also an artistic one that we made, showing these beings as a kind of neon wings in violet blue colors.
Thank you. I think I have it now.
Be another one. I felt no discomfort seeing this being, which was entirely made of light. They didn't have hands or feet. They glided through the desert. They had a kind of outline of violet butterfly wings here near the head. It's like how you often portray saints, angels, with halos. You have a halo on your head. He had a halo that wasn't golden, but it was kind of pinkish, something like that.
Near you.
It was about 30 meters away. How many
people were you with, and how many more?
There were 5 more people.
Did you run, or what happened when they approached?
No, we stayed. You just stood there frozen. We were paralyzed. My God, it's so close. What's gonna happen? We couldn't think of anything.
At that moment,
there was nothing else. I'll explain it to you, but this being...
Did they scare you too?
They didn't. Why didn't they? They were very beautiful. It was something very beautiful, made of light. Different from those that had a monstrous face. So there are the dark black ones. This one didn't have a face. That's already something that helps, because then you don't see it looking at you or making expressions towards you. What did I see in these other beings? Even though I don't remember the exact features. And he ignored us. He was just walking by, it reminded me. So the closest I can get is those parade floats at Sapucaí. Huge, gigantic, full of details, and you just stand there. When you go to Sapuke, you keep looking at that thing. Wow, it's huge. It's got sparkles. It reminded me. I was there amazed, but it was a
There are several, just one, and
giant. He stood about 5 meters tall. And he slid, and started disappearing, dissolving, disappearing until he was gone.
clear to you, very clear human form.
He had a humanoid shape, and he had arms, legs, a torso, but no hands or feet. No, and he was sliding. And he had this butterfly wing, which is nothing like anything I've ever seen anywhere. Not even in pictures or movies.
He had a wing behind his shoulders, like this.
Behind his back, but it was just an outline, an exact outline of a butterfly, that half butterfly wing.
As if he could fly.
As if he could fly. I'm not sure it was a wing, but it resembled a butterfly wing outline. He wasn't flying, so I'm not sure if he could, but since I saw it as a wing, maybe he could.
He was
Physical or...
Was he tangible, or was he just a light?
I think he was just light. So that's what I saw. I had nothing to check if it would be. There are some solid light phenomena in these anomalies, which are lights that can move objects. They are lights, but at the same time they are also solid. They can carry objects, push objects. I don't know if that being would have the power to do that. So for me, they were just lights. And the cool thing was that we were in shock there. And there were some Chilean girls who could draw well. They drew, and I said, we didn't exchange ideas about the features, and when they drew, it was exactly what we had seen. I gave those drawings to our friend Jorge Wesley, who made an illustration nearly identical to what we saw. And this time I didn't feel afraid. It could be something malevolent, it could. But it didn't show anything, it had no face, it didn't turn, it didn't come around us. And the phenomenon was very beautiful.
Both of them. Can I call them apparitions? Yes, do you call them that? Yes. The two apparitions were quite different. What connects them for you?
I believe it might be exactly those. So nothing came from the sky, that's already a big point. Nothing came from space. It simply turned on and off, so...
Isn't it extraterrestrial?
In my view, no, because it turned on and off. What's the big deal about that? There isn't any experiment we can do to tell an interdimensional from a terrestrial, so that makes it very difficult. But the connection I see between spirituality and religion is that there is a link with these phenomena, which is as follows. I've talked to many people who... Public figures, including when they are depressed, in deep sadness, these beings appear. Recently, I handled several cases involving people with deep depression. She went to a deserted beach, went to a forest at night to disappear, like I did at that moment of beauty, because of that time of COVID, etc. She went there to disappear, and when she arrives, whether at the deserted beach or forest, 3 beings appear. Their forms vary. Some appear in the form of white sheets, others appear as grey beings, those grey ones with big eyes, which is the classic extraterrestrial. Others take human form. They always say, "Don't be afraid." And they appear to the person. And usually they give an ability to that person. First, they say they're going to help. They give an ability. Usually it's clairvoyance for these people. And they start to... It's like they bump into each other for permission. "Don't be afraid. I can come closer. You can come." Voices.
Human.
They're usually telepathic, right? They don't move their mouths. They're usually telepathic. The person hears that voice in their mind.
That phrase you mentioned is striking and important. Don't be afraid.
Isn't that in the Bible? Gabriel says it to Mary, right?
Whenever an angel appears, he says, "Don't be afraid."
Yes. The big question I ask is, these guys, if they are really... Spiritual scammers is the term I use. They use tactics people might mistake for those of an angel. And I think the big issue for us dealing with this, and I think that's why the Bible forbids us from messing with rituals and spirits. We, as humans, can't always tell good from bad or angels from demons.
Are you religious?
Yes.
But even so, are you still doing these vigils?
Yes, because I think it's important in affecting people. I think it's very important for this to be talked about, even if I'm going to take a risk because of it.
What is your goal?
My goal is to provide evidence so that science can study this, so that theologians can study it, anthropologists, and various fields of human knowledge. And so that we can reach the status quo and speak, look, The real phenomenon exists and it's even affecting people, and there are people who are falling for this kind of maneuver and manipulation by these beings. So that's the main goal, to help people understand better, to know what's happening. There are people who sometimes show up with implants, people who show up with burns, people who show up injured. The most dangerous part of all this, as I said, is discernment. We as humans don't have the discernment to tell if a being like that would be good or bad, no matter how hard we try. I think it's very complicated for us to get into that scenario.
You just mentioned Chagas. Did you say burns?
Yes. Oh,
What is this scene here?
this is Aurora, right? One of the most well-known victims of Operation Prato in 77 was a phenomenon that covered the entire coast of Maranhão and Pará. In 77, it began in Maranhão, ended in Pará, and caused panic throughout the population. They were luminous phenomena that came and attacked, shooting beams of light at people, and from these beams of light, skin was removed. It was a biopsy. What do you see in the wound? And along with her, the doctor at the time, whose name is Velaide Sessim, she says people lost liters of blood, as shown by tests revealing low red blood cell counts.
We have about 6 liters. Some of them were sucked out.
There is a report of a 13-year-old child who supposedly had 2 to 3 liters of blood sucked from her, a 13-year-old girl.
And she didn't die.
She survived but was in bad shape. And people had a kind of anemia when they were affected. They became very weak and some had permanent after effects. And it caused panic in these coastal cities. The Brazilian Air Force was called and they carried out what was called Operation Plate, which lasted for about 2 months. In November and December 1977, the military observed over 9 types of crafts and gathered hundreds of testimonies from attack victims. And all of this is...
Spaceships, so in this case, yes.
He thought they were spaceships. They saw ships in the sky, right?
Do you think they were ships?
I believe today that this phenomenon has a... We can analyze with artificial intelligence, but you are not artificial intelligence. You can now use chat, generative pre-trained transformer or similar platforms to draw, create videos or make images. And that image is created sometimes with a few small mistakes, but it's created. I believe that if there is a higher intelligence in a hierarchy of reality above ours, it is capable of creating whatever reality it wants, here including spaceships. So, if you look at Ezekiel back then in the Bible, he talked about the chariots of fire. If you look throughout time...
Chariots of fire. Plato also talked about them when he spoke of our immortal soul.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's interesting. And Tsuruboro in Japan in the 1800s in the form of a boat, if they came in the form of a boat on the water. Operation Prato in 1977 involves several different types of ships. I believe they're shaping, as researchers like John Keel in the United States and Jacques Vallée in France have noted. They also think these beings adapt their actions to the religious and cultural context of each era. So, it makes sense that since the 40s we've had space programs and movies about this. It makes sense for them to appear as interplanetary ships, possibly to obscure their true origin.
You mentioned Ezekiel, but there's also Daniel's prophecy, which talks about one like a son of man. It's a complex interpretation. Son of man can also mean human being or one like a human, depending on translation. Carried by the clouds. That's much like what you're saying, just different perspectives on the same phenomenon.
Yes, and before that in the 60s, that's interesting. What did you say? In the 60s, we had General Ochoa, who was an army general, and he had contact with phenomena in Alexandria at the Rio do Ouro farm near Brasilia. And he would take political journalists to see the phenomenon. This phenomenon would come in a cloud, in a mist, and this mist would materialize into a craft from which the beings would come out. And several politicians and journalists of that time, as they were able to experience that moment with him, had a prophet with them, a seer, who knew when it was going to happen. And it happened.
Ronnie, I've been listening to you here for about 40 minutes, and I'm fascinated by everything you're saying. And I can't help but compare in my mind what you're telling me, the phenomena of these beings that we can't explain. Well, with the apparitions of Maria, we just talked about the cloud. You told me about the golden ball, the mother of gold, right? Yes, about that ball that looks like a sun. And the apparitions in Fatima are very similar to everything you're describing. Yes, do you know about the apparitions?
Yes, I studied the apparitions extensively.
Fatima, is there a connection with these alien or interdimensional being apparitions?
I believe so. If we consider everything in the Bible and beings from folklore as interdimensional beings, I believe we fit this theory into everything, right? So, that dance of the sun that was seen in Fatima by thousands of people who witnessed it, thousands. Interestingly, during the Fatima apparition, the dance of the sun occurred and was visible to everyone. One of the doctors of that time, who was considered one of the most reliable witnesses, so to speak, who gave testimony back then, said that he saw a silver disc along with the dance of the sun, which could be, in quotes, something technological. So that's interesting, an interesting point. But what's most interesting is that the ones who saw Our Lady of Fatima were the little shepherds. And what's also most interesting to me is that Francisco, Jacinta, and Lucia...
That's right.
Jacinta, he didn't hear the messages, only the girls could hear them. And that's an important point, because this phenomenon interacts most of the time with girls, usually children or teenagers, that's right.
This phenomenon of interdimensional beings as a whole.
That's it.
And that's more or less what happens in Fatima.
Only the girls could hear?
Lourdes is also a woman.
Exactly. So you had this interaction with the girls. Did you have it too? One thing that comes up, which people rarely talk about, is the buzzing of bees. A kind of buzzing that happens when these apparitions occur. The girls experienced physical effects like weakness and tiredness during sightings of beings and creatures, and others felt the same. There is a case in Claudio, in Minas Gerais, that happened in 2008, where there is a report from a captain, Captain Eisenhower, now captain. At the time, as a lieutenant, he and some colleagues were stopped by luminous beings in a sugarcane field. And they felt tired, thirsty, all those things that the boys say they felt. And he couldn't grab his weapon. He tried to grab it, but something wouldn't let him, and they fell into a kind of sleepy trance. The beings revealed a lake where none existed. So whenever these apparitions happen, you see the same characteristics in people. But I can't say. I don't think it's always a demon or an evil being disguised as an angel of light. I believe some apparitions could be positive.
For Fatima, people believed it was a benign being, Our Lady, even at Cova de Iria.
And there's nothing in Fatima that makes me think it's something negative. Instead, people there converted, making it a pilgrimage center for the faithful. I don't see anything negative from that time regarding this being. It could be something that... The interpretation I have today is as follows. It may not be Our Lady there. It could be a phenomenon connected to religion, using religion for good. In fact, let's assume that did these beings create religions or cause apparitions? Is a higher intelligence behind it all? Perhaps by God's direct or indirect command?
Or God himself.
Or God himself doing this? I think powerful beings are here, each with their own agendas, and several factions are trying to influence things in different ways. If we take Fatima, which is undeniably a real, inexplicable phenomenon that happened there, with thousands of witnesses, we have that. In the 1940s, at the end of the 1940s, the same thing happened. In Germany, hundreds of people, even thousands of people, saw the dance of the sun in Germany.
But they didn't associate it with the religious phenomenon.
That's where I'm getting at. Exactly. And in that, who were the seers? 8-10-year-old girls, Germans. Then they were the ones who received the messages. But what's the difference? Their atmospheric phenomena observed by people matched those seen in Fatima. But the messages received by the girls and the trance they entered were different from those of the 3 shepherd children. They received messages that were not very religious or Christian. Some were even blasphemous in relation to the Christian religion. And the church understood that. In fact, the church calls it this today. There is a group in the church specifically for studying these phenomena and classifying them as supernatural. Or preternatural, if I'm not mistaken about the term. The supernatural is when there is an inexplicable divine phenomenon, and the preternatural is when it's a phenomenon that is not divine. It can be a phenomenon not explainable, which has other aspects, including the diabolical, and...
Is that what you believe? That there are direct connections and that, in fact, these are the same phenomena? An apparition of Maria and a vision you had, for example, of evil beings. Interdimensional?
In this case from Germany, the church entirely. He even said that there are diabolical characteristics in the phenomenon that appeared there and classified it as a preternatural phenomenon, which is a phenomenon without explanation, but not connected to divine grace.
But they did not deny what happened.
They did not deny what happened.
When did you see those black beings? We kind of understood here that they might look like oil, in a way, because they were liquid, but a thick liquid, right? Where did that material come from? Were you able to go there later and identify what's next to the cross? You could get that black material there.
No, there was no source for that. I brought equipment and found no trace of material left by those beings. It's important to mention that the property is closed off. You can only access it from inside the property, which at that time, on a Thursday, was completely closed. By several gates, actually. So there's no access, there's no road, no path, no trail. Nothing that people could have gone there and played some kind of prank just to take a look. What I saw through the binoculars truly can't be explained. Also today, while looking at the photos, I think that sphere of light became these beings. Today, I believe the sphere was forming and becoming these beings. There's a self-exposure photo clearly showing the shape of the orange luminous sphere. In this one, which would be a being in front of the cross.
So it would be the transformation of light into a tangible, touchable matter.
Yes, I believe these beings would materialize today using this mechanism. Still unexplained, but we can somewhat understand how they appear.
Still, with the amazement you're causing me here, when you talk about this phenomenon, what did you call this phenomenon?
This phenomenon? Back then, people jokingly and the media for sensationalism called it chupa chupa. Why? Did it suck blood? It mostly happened to girls. Just watch. Aurora was usually 18, while Carmen and the other girls were 13.
But what do you technically call this phenomenon?
An anomalous phenomenon.
Anomalous, yes. Were there marks here?
Yes. With skin torn off even?
And you mentioned sores. It's hard not to think of Jesus Christ's wounds when talking about them. Yes. Are you making some kind of comparison?
I believe that maybe these beings actually have the ability to cause wounds. You remember Padre Pio, right? Padre Pio had the wounds. Interestingly, Padre Pio's wounds hurt more when he prayed with greater intensity. And then comes discernment. Could it be the negative beings were somehow trying to make Padre Pio suffer? Because they saw that he was a very strong man in his faith and helped people, etc.? Or were they positive beings trying to replicate Christ's wounds in him, since that wasn't stated, right?
Do you worry that Padre Pio's wounds and stigmata were a negative phenomenon?
Yes, that he might have been affected. I can't say why, but no.
Not say?
I can't say that, oh, you don't know? I know how to say why. Maybe it's because his faith was stronger than anything else, which might really annoy these beings, right? One curious thing, Mutual Unidentified Flying Object Network is the largest civilian group with the biggest database on the phenomenon in the United States.
What's it called?
Mutual Unidentified Flying Object Network. Mutual Unidentified Flying Object Network, Mutual Network for Unidentified Flying Object Research. Mostly they researched hundreds of cases in which people who saw these beings and were being abducted called out the name of Jesus, and the abduction was interrupted. Why would advanced extraterrestrial beings flee just by hearing the name of Jesus? This sparked a major argument among Mutual Unidentified Flying Object Network directors when they added it to their manual, so that people would cry out for help, asking for divine intervention to be able to, a way to stop this. There were also non-Christian directors, which caused major arguments. Today, the director, whom I haven't met yet, was recently the lead researcher in South Korea studying the American phenomenon. He catalogued and researched these cases more than anyone else. So it's a very curious thing that you see, that it's inevitable to have a connection between phenomena and religions. Gray beings, those grays that we see in movies with black eyes, right? They disappear and flee when the name of Jesus is invoked. The most famous case is Beth Anderson in the United States. At her most desperate, she called for Jesus and the beings vanished.
Did you mention Padre Pio? But there are other cases recognized by the church and others not recognized of Christians who started to have the stigmata, as they say in Italian, stigmata, right? For us, or the wounds of Christ reproduced. There's the case of the nun Anne-Catherine Emmerich, which is impressive because it's very much associated with the whole narrative she gives, which would be a vision of the Assumption of Mary. Again, a being taken to heaven who goes with a cloud, goes on a cloud. There's also the strong case of Saint Francis. Saint Francis, according to Catholic tradition, received the stigmata of Jesus in Laverna, a place I have actually visited. Does this also have to do with events like the one you showed here? Or like those of other people who report having suffered something coming from beings? Extraterrestrials or...
That's interesting. Dana Pasuka, a United States doctor of theology, has never studied UFOs. She goes to the Vatican to research phenomena like saints' levitation, and also to research purgatory, because purgatory has different interpretations. One of them is really cool, purgatory. In the Middle Ages, people entered caves and stayed for 30 days to heal and purify themselves from sins. And people reported demons in those caves that would materialize in front of them.
When Jesus went to the caves of Jericho, he was tempted by the devil.
And in the desert as well.
It's the same journey. It is.
We always end up with these biblical questions, right? Then Diana starts to look at what? Look. Regarding saintly levitation, she begins noticing phenomena involving saints and nuns who received rays of light and were hurt by rays of light coming from the luminous object. And then talking with friends, they say, no, but that's everything we see in the unidentified flying object phenomenon. And then she says, wow, really? And then for the first time she goes to the meeting. It's Duma Ufological Convention, where she hears stories. It was specifically focused on abduction stories. People reported luminous beings shooting rays that cause wounds or left implants. And she says, hey, I think this phenomenon is starting. It's the same phenomenon we've seen for hundreds of years here on Earth. It can't be the same. I also think this phenomenon might be the same, just with some changes. Sometimes it's shaped like a ship, sometimes a chariot of fire or a boat, but it's always the same phenomenon.
Now, there are more recent reports of people who say they were abducted and then received chips. Right? I know someone who knows a person who's been reporting this, and I'm actually going to bring that person here. She says the following. There is a hierarchy among extraterrestrials. She says she received a chip implant and has a direct relationship with extraterrestrials, which for you are interdimensional beings. We've realized terminology isn't important here. Yes, people do get chip implants.
Yes, including one of them. Today in the United States, September 9th, we're attending the 5th congressional hearing on the topic. At every hearing, they bring a government whistleblower, including Elizondo. He says, look, Lou Elizondo knows several military personnel have had close encounters. Several of them have implants. These are implants with both organic and inorganic aspects. They are metallic devices coated with a kind of biological capsule, maybe to make them body compatible and prevent rejection. And what's interesting is that they behave intelligently. When you try to cut to shoot, it moves away from the cut. This happened with several military personnel he mentioned, and it also occurs with civilians. There are people who came to me and said they have implants. A Ranger Landa from Operation Plate, who led this mission, is where Aurora was injured. He had an arm implant, spoke openly about it. You arrived in 97.
To see someone who has an implant? Yes. So what is it like?
There is a doctor here in Brazil named Dr. Arthur Gatti, who is an oncologist, and he also has several cases of people with implants. It's interesting that many of these people are terminally ill, suffering, and depressed. This also relates to the issue of open doors to the phenomenon. What opens these doors, but what do I believe? That in most of these cases, these beings are coming disguised in different costumes, whether of light or... If you lack religion but believe in extraterrestrials, it will appear as an extraterrestrial. If you believe in neither, the form will differ. It may appear as a white sheet, a generic light, or a human shape.
But you said that other people come along, so it will appear in that form, looking the same for everyone there in that appearance.
There are different types of manifestation. The rarest is materialization that multiple people can witness or record.
Like the one you saw.
The one I saw, right? But there are the most common ways, which happen in what's called the dormitory experience. The person relaxes, the body falls asleep, and when they sleep, they have a dream that's more real than this reality of these beings coming. How can you tell the difference? Like when I started researching, it felt vague. How do you even study something like this? How do you tell an illusion, dream, nightmare, or hallucination from reality? People often wake up from this dream that feels more real than reality. They're burned, they're wounded, they're cut, They have implants that don't have an entry hole. There's no scar. How was the implant placed? For me, that's what distinguishes truly anomalous abduction cases. And in this case of bedroom abduction, what's happening? For me, it would be an easier way for them to operate. When you sleep, your consciousness leaves your body. In other words, we would no longer be limited by the physical body. We have another body here accompanying us. And these beings, we might actually go to the world of these beings. So it would be energetically cheaper for these beings to attack people then. What's the difference? What would that prove? That there's a reality that people talk about that's much more real. Why? Touch, smell, taste, everything in that reality is more amplified, so that's why they say it's more real than this reality. And when she comes back, she has physical material evidence on her body. What would that prove to me? In a more in-depth study, that there is a reality that is perhaps hierarchically superior or inferior anyway, but that can, in a hierarchical way, place matter here in this world. Materialize what was done there. If someone dreams of having a cut, they may wake up with the same cut on their body, sometimes bleeding. This is a very interesting point that we can explore, and that would be the clearest evidence of a phenomenon that, at first, would be considered esoteric or spiritual. And that is manifesting here. But I think that some cases, as I mentioned, end when you say the name of Jesus. So, could they be extraterrestrials? I don't think so. Maybe they're just adapting. If you believe in extraterrestrials, they'll claim they put a chip in you, and I believe it. I've seen patterns supporting this. They can only come in and attach themselves to you like parasites if you allow it, if you believe. That's why they need to start with an introduction like, don't be afraid, or I'm an extraterrestrial, or something similar. For what? So you allow them to come in. Because there are many reports, it's not just about saying the name of Jesus, that's an extreme, but there are many reports where the person says, I don't want contact anymore, I don't allow it. This being goes away. So it's as if there's a law that prevents it, a universal law that prevents these beings from coming in here whenever they want. If they could enter, the negative ones would have destroyed everything already, right? I believe they can't enter unless our consciousness and intentions allow them in. And again, that's why I think Christians, for example, the Catholic Church, forbid you from dealing with magic, with spiritism, with all of that. Because when you open a door in your house, someone can come in. It could be someone good, sure, but it could also be someone bad. And usually the people who look for this are in what kind of emotional state? Shaken, sad, wanting a cure, wanting help. That's the big danger of this.
What's interesting about what you're saying is that I'm remembering. Early Christians, up to the 4th and 5th centuries, believed in and practiced witchcraft. Spells, right? What are they called? They're spells, right? Spells, magic. They wrote texts on clay pots that were meant to ward off demons and hid them under the houses. They would dig and bury them.
And remember Solomon and others? They actually practiced witchcraft with a Christian twist to imprison demons to do something they wanted. So their magic was using so-called Christian methods to imprison these demons so that with their power you force them to do what you want.
King Solomon once summoned a sorceress when he needed help. Witchcraft wasn't an issue before, it became one at an unclear point. You're talking all the time about things that are reminding me of spiritism. First, you mentioned doors. I remember mediums. Do you believe that people like you are the mediums of this belief system that seeks interdimensional beings? Are you a kind of medium?
I don't consider myself a medium, in the strict sense of the word.
To be a means is to be a vehicle.
I think we are all mediums. We can all be means. I think some people may have genetic alterations. Many mediums seem to have it in their family ancestry, right? And who manifests this? Maybe there's a genetic factor, but there's also the matter of you, your intention, your consciousness, what you're seeking. If you want to, go for it. Whoever seeks, finds. If you keep seeking contact, you'll open a door.
You will. If I go with you to do a vigil, I will find it.
At some point, you will. I can't guarantee it'll be the first time, but at some point, you'll see something. That's inevitable. That's why skeptics see nothing. If you're a skeptic and you don't believe, that door isn't open. And that's not in your head. We're talking about materialization. These are physical things. That's what people have trouble understanding, but I believe that we all have some mediumship. Why? To be the gateway, the key to connecting with different beings. The main risk here is our lack of discernment. I'll say it again, we don't have the discernment to know what's good and what's bad. So I don't recommend anyone to try to do this or even try to seek it out. During vigils or going to places when you're in a negative state like sadness or depression anyway.
So you don't see a problem in normal situations? You're 39 years old and you started doing this about 8 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. 4
years?
Only 4 years? Wasn't that in 2017?
My sighting was in 2018. In 2017, I had the New York Times article, which is the black money glowing out, where they reveal, look, see, didn't we say that behind the curtains we weren't researching anything? Actually, publicly we weren't researching anything, but behind the curtains we were spending millions of dollars on something we said didn't even exist.
Who said that? The American government? The Pentagon?
The New York Times exposed it in a 2017 article. Elizondo shows up and magically presents 3 previously unreleased videos of phenomena, including one shaped like a disc. At that moment I said, look.
Do you have this one here?
This is one of the phenomena in Operation Plate. The military saw one of the crafts, and Sergeant Flavio, who often made such drawings, drew it at the time. One of the 9 shapes is the one that appeared in Pará.
Also in the shape of a disc.
Also in the shape of a disc.
And you were telling me then about the article you read?
And then at that moment I opened my mind. I said, look, if these guys are researching and spending millions of dollars, there must be something there.
Up until then you were a skeptic.
I was skeptical. I'd watch documentaries or reports and wonder, is it real? One thing I always noticed in Virginia and other cases that came up in the past was that they were simple people who had nothing to gain from this. On the contrary, they had something to lose. They became the target of ridicule and jokes. Why would they tell something like this? And then I had this nagging suspicion. When the New York Times article came out, I noted they called it a psychological operation, claiming nothing was happening, yet spent millions researching it. Is it real? I began my own search, and in 2018 visited Serra da Beleza after reading the 2017 article.
And then?
Then do I have it? The first time I went, I said it was just a coincidence. I had a sighting, not the one with the 6. I saw a sphere about 2 meters wide. It was me and my wife. At the time, we saw a sphere up on top of the Cruzeiro. Not on the cross, but next to it. And it was there, moving around, as if it was part of nature, just moving around. Sometimes it would flash a bright light that illuminated the entire forest. Vinha remained.
Can I tell you something? It's giving me goosebumps. When I went to Conservatoria and we went into the woods to observe the sky, I wasn't looking for anything. But one of the people who was with me told me exactly what you're describing now, and he saw it in that same place more than 20 years ago.
Interesting.
I need to find him. I only remember his name, Cristiano.
If you remember, let me know because I want to talk to him.
He reported the exact same thing. Your description matches his perfectly and gave me chills.
As if he was looking for something, exploring the place. Yeah.
I was really impacted there. But it passes. You forget, you know? Maybe he was the one who saw it, imagined it, and now you just told me the same thing.
So then, Vich, we were watching that and we made a joke. Let's try to get closer to see what happens. At that moment, something resembling a baby appeared, about palm-sized, around 20 or 30 centimeters. It came in a very erratic movement. It was making these very bright flickers. It didn't bother the eyes. There was no sound, nothing at all. And my wife at the time got really scared. My God, it's getting really close, really close, really close. I pull out my phone in camera mode with the flashlight on, and you can see why the flashlight, right? It's that automatic urge to figure things out. Since it was already lit, who would I even point the flashlight at? When I shine it, both appear at once. Then I said, whoa.
Then I
said, whoa. Smart move. I filmed and shined the light. Both of them disappeared at the same time. So, besides, it's not something natural for me because until that moment I thought, wow, could it be something natural? I had already tried this idea to see if it would get closer, and it worked immediately. There are 2 smart attitudes. When visualizing to get closer, she chooses one. We often call it a probe in this phenomenon, unidentified flying object probes, right? They're small structures meant to search and study something. It comes up behind us. Secondly, when I point the camera, it disappears. So it's something intelligent. That's when I really got into it and started researching this subject. Today I have the Vigil project, which is about setting up cameras and sensors to try to catch this phenomenon.
You started the Vigil project, and now recently you made a documentary, right? Yes. What's the name of the documentary?
Phenomena in the Amazon, Indigenous Encounters.
So, what do the indigenous people have to do with this whole story?
This happened in 2017. In 2018, I first encountered this phenomenon. I visited several times but saw nothing. The first time I went, I saw many things. I saw this and red lights that same day. By 8:30 post meridium, 2 hours later, we were still just playing among the trees.
Where? In the Amazon?
No, this was in Serra da Beleza, still in 2018, as if they were fairies playing among the trees. This was in 2018.
You even start the documentary by narrating what you saw. Yes?
Time passed, and in 2020, the pandemic happened. I was working and short on time. In 2020, during the pandemic, I was stuck at home and couldn't do much, so I decided to research this subject and I have to help somehow. I have some credibility as a researcher, as an engineer, as a scientist, no, so I can help with this. And then I started researching. First, I made requests to the government. I said I'd skip the armed forces cliché since they never deliver and try other government agencies instead. And I found a case that the local newspapers reported. At the time, in 2016, indigenous people were attacked. In 2014 and 2016, indigenous people were attacked. From the Yanawa ethnicity on the border, from the Ashaninka ethnicity on the border with Peru. And I said, wow, that's interesting. And I made requests to the government.
To go there.
To request documents via the Freedom of Information Act. To my surprise, hundreds of pages of case documents arrived.
This is one of them.
This is one of them. This is a technical report from Fundação Nacional do Índio from the cases in 2014, specifically to investigate what was happening and who was being affected. Girls aged 13 and 14 were affected by luminous phenomena that emitted beams of light and caused various physiological effects. One was pregnant but lost the baby.
Just tell me the difference because you saw it.
Yes.
What happens to girls or women that doesn't happen to men?
It happens to men, but Operation Prata was rare and affected only a minority. Generally, men are more challenging toward these phenomena. He tries to shoot or do something, and sometimes this happens. Occasionally, he's hunting in the woods. It's very common for hunters in the woods to see this. And during Operation Prata, it happened a lot. Someone was hunting, and this phenomenon went after the person who was hunting there with a gun. Maybe it's because they have that intention. Everything I say here is about intention, right? Regarding this phenomenon, maybe it's because the person had the intention to kill an animal with a gun. Maybe the phenomenon was more aggressive with this man who was there. Usually, those who are just sitting at home and get attacked there or during Operation Prata are girls, often very young.
And what is the intention? What is the interest of these beings in appearing to you, for example?
I believe that first, it might be that there are different parts. I believe good beings intervene here. Not everything is bad, right? Maybe these good beings actually want me to record something, perhaps. To be able to inform the population about what's happening.
And what needs to be informed?
This phenomenon is real, material, recordable, collectible, intelligent, present here, and affects people. That's the main point. If they were just aliens from another planet, it would have been revealed long ago. The main point for me why this isn't revealed is that there's a whole aspect that deals with religion and spirituality, and also with people's safety. And so you'll have governments that can't protect us. A phenomenon that can enter your home, and this could cause some kind of panic in people, revealing something like this. A phenomenon that mainly affects children, especially girls, and a phenomenon that hurts people. And worse than the wound, is what it leaves in the mind, in the trauma of people. It's a kind of phenomenon. There are several people affected in Operation Prato who suffered permanent brain damage. There are several traumatized people who suffered severe psychological damage. This interaction led several people to develop what is now called schizophrenia. I think some schizophrenia cases might involve contact with phenomena because the person is attacked, begins hearing voices influencing them, and starts having visions of visitations. So we need to start studying and separate the wheat from the chaff a little. Now, maybe we're putting everything in the same bag, so maybe by bringing this evidence, the government can help since they have data on this.
Brazilian government, for sure.
At that time, Brigadier José Carlos Pereira gave his last interview. Even to Cabrini, he says, look, we revealed everything possible. Everything we could. Why? When we give information, they keep asking for more and we don't know how to respond. We're obligated to defend this place.
But we don't know from what or how, exactly.
But just the fact that you... Imagine. I make an analogy, which is this. Imagine you live on a street where all the time after 11 at night, there's a very high rate of robberies. And people don't know about this. You live there unaware, so eventually you'll go out and get robbed. I think it's better to live on a street where I know what's going on and I can take the necessary precautions. Of course, living a bit with that fear and all, but having protective measures. And the state should guide me on how I can protect myself, because I think this subject has some guidance on how to protect yourself. We've already seen a bit of how it is here. It's better than not knowing than going out and actually becoming another victim, right? And then the indigenous people are going through this, the fishermen in Operation Plate and people like them are going through this. And what do the authorities do? They just hope it passes, knowing these waves always do.
What else do you show in the documentary? You start with the phenomenon in Serra da Beleza, and then you go to the Amazon.
I go to Acre, right? Well, cases happened in 2014 and 2016. It's in Acre, near Peru, and then it begins further into Central Acre. And I kept preparing because I knew this phenomenon would come back at some point. It's always in waves, and I stayed prepared. At some point it will come back, at some point it will come back. At that time I met journalists, I met the politicians from the region, some leaders, and I said, look, if anything happens, let me...
No, and...
Last year they let me know. A journalist from Ogogel called me and said, Ronnie, yeah, it started happening. But it was in a village more in the center of Acre, a village near Tarawaka, called the Yamanawa people. And then right away, I said, I'll get in touch with the chief. Then I talked to the chief. I said, look, can I go to the village to bring equipment? He said, you can come. And they really want this. Why? When they seek help, the government dismisses it as an indigenous story, saying it doesn't exist.
So they see it too, the indigenous people, a lot, and they really believe in it. What name do they give to this?
They don't have one. Some have a worldview. It depends on the ethnic group. Some believe these beings come from space, while others think they are from the forest. But they all eventually encounter some kind of spirit or spiritual being, right? It's the explanation of the origin that changes, right? For example, Shaninka's worldview mentions beings from space or from the stars. But the worldview of the Anawa doesn't have that. They are beings from the forest, beings from nature, and...
Do you believe they are all the same beings?
Yeah, I think they're the same beings, just different masks, right?
Mask.
Yeah? Different outfits, right? Being there for people.
Talk about masks, costumes. Would the word outfit also apply?
When there are beings that have androids there, you usually have a change of outfit too.
Because the description of the body as an outfit, appears in the apocryphal Gospels, which weren't recognized right in official Christianity. Exactly at the moment when they come closest to the spiritists, to Spiritism. As if Jesus himself, even in one of the texts, changes his outfit according to his own will. Yes, it would be a manifestation of God in different incarnations or bodies, but in the description of some apocryphal Gospels, Jesus can change form. He appears to some with a beard, to others as taller, younger, or older. That also makes sense in what you're experiencing.
Yeah, and if you think about it, there's Our Lady of Aparecida, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and many other forms in which Our Lady appears based on local ethnicity, right? So this phenomenon adapts itself, whether for good or for bad, as we've been saying here, but it adapts. It has this elastic capacity, right? To change its shape, change its clothes, change its appearance according to the intention it wants. Or to connect better with others, for better or worse, that's the main point, right?
Ronnie, you're 39, and until you were 31, you had no connection to any of this. What's the chance that a few years from now you'll find out that you're wrong now?
I'll reflect and, with no problem at all, change my opinion, right?
No, I'm not saying that you are at all, but I'm asking, do you think you might change your mind?
Of course, that's fine. Humans make mistakes, and I'm willing to make them.
But do you think with everything you've seen that you could be wrong and it's not any of that?
I think it's possible because we as humans have a very limited capacity for knowledge and discernment, especially with something that seems more powerful than it is.
No, you're not wrong, but you just won't admit there's a phenomenon.
It's obvious that there is a phenomenon and it's real.
You saw black beings in front of the cross, right? Are you still sure?
It's obvious. There's no doubt about it.
About what you might be able to change your mind on, the interpretation, the
Origin of the phenomenon and its purpose. This is where it gets complicated, right? What I'm trying to do here, a philosophy, the hypothesis is with you, exactly that. I think that's more complicated.
And what have you been studying to be able to go deeper into this?
Physics and theology? Things that are completely opposed, right? And for me, these are things that if you don't have both areas of knowledge, you won't be able to reach a conclusion about what this would be.
Do you believe that a big revelation or great disclosure from the American government is still yet to come?
I think so, since 2017 doesn't make sense to me. I don't believe it was a genuine move from the good government to reveal what's going on.
What do you think it was?
I believe there might be some event that's about to happen. They know about it and they're making some kind of preparation. Like people say, in 2027, 2028, 2030, but...
What do you think they have? Have they captured any of these beings?
Absolutely.
Do you believe that the American government has captured an alien being?
And not just the American government, right? The Brazilian government too. I believe what happened in Virginia is real.
The Virginia ET would be kept in the custody of the Brazilian armed forces.
American,
yes. You have evidence of that?
we have reports from military and doctors. The Virginia case is the one with the most reports from reliable people, I would say. From people of high standing in society, that would be the Virginia case. There are local doctors, firefighters, and military personnel. I have gathered a lot of evidence. You have alterations made today in the fire department records from that time. I have proof. Soon the public will learn more about my investigation. I've been to Virginia.
Tell us what you can about this investigation.
There are reasons why you can't find documents on the Virginia case. Perhaps they were never created. But when you look at what was done that day...
It was the only day.
It was the only day, January 20th, 1996. Other operations occurred during the month, but January 20th was the main day. When you look at what was done in the police routine that day, what the firefighters did that day, what the army did that day, you start to notice some inconsistencies. While you look at the documents from that day, from those activities, you notice erasures, you notice mistakes, you notice corrections in official documents.
What do you think happened?
Was an operation covered up there? I can't say for sure. There is no proof to say that you actually had a being, but you have a series of reports that to me are also evidence. When you have something massive like this that all points in one direction, especially with those documents that are redacted there.
After everything you've studied and this investigation you're doing, are you still going to reveal what you believe happened? What is the Virginia ET?
It's very complicated because that year, what happened? I arrive in Aloimente, a city near Virginia. And I talked to a random guy in the square in front of the church. I visited Loimente's main church and spoke to a man who asked if I wanted to know what happened in Virginia. Tried to find out who that guy was. I said I'd go. Who is this guy? It wasn't my event. I was heading elsewhere and just stopped to look. I went back to Virginia right away to ask who that guy was. That guy. He was a big landowner at the time, and along with two other big landowners, all of them millionaires, they own large parts of the land in Virginia. They perform black magic rituals with animal sacrifices, and I was able to verify where these rituals were done and how they were done. He did it. There's photo and video evidence. And on the lands where the beings appeared, the forests where the beings are reported, those forests belong exactly to this person.
So, would the appearance of this alien being be related to the black magic rituals that these landowners performed?
That would be an interpretation I have today. I really believe it. For me, that's the strongest hypothesis.
A response from evil beings to an evil ritual, or a response from positive, benevolent beings to an evil ritual?
That's an interesting observation, because when these beings that might be negative are exposing themselves in this way. For me, it seemed negative, maybe just because of its appearance, which feels like judging by looks. It's not cool, but anyway, he had characteristics of demons from the Bible. Few mention his split hoof. The foot of the Varginha creature was split, which is the famous goat's foot, the foot of creatures. Animals, right? In the Bible, are the beastly beings shown as human-animal hybrids. Some doctors who studied him said he was a mix of people who got close to the creature. He had reptile or amphibian traits. You get it, right? What you see most in biblical texts are reptiles and things like that.
What ended up in Dante's Inferno also ended up in the work of Hieronymus Bosch. The very famous Garden of Earthly Delights, right? The Garden of Delights, which has those beings exactly as you are describing. Perhaps the ET from Varginha is depicted in Bosch's painting.
The soul analyst who mentioned the being's tongue described it as a snake's tongue. His eyes were red, and though he lacked horns, he had bumps and lumps on his head. You start to say, hey, maybe something here makes sense. When I visited Dr. Ubirajara, the main lawyer and ufologist then, he later left the case due to absurd actions and claims by some ufologists. He said, RONY, back in '96, there was a sorcerer that we found out about who said he opened a portal, but we never told anyone because we think it's such an absurd story.
That it was the portal.
The portal. He used black magic to open it and several beasts appeared. When I get to Virginia and speak to the police, they tell me, RONY, it wasn't just the Virginia director. There was a hairy one because I went after him. He was roaming around the same area here.
Did you interview the person who saw this?
The police officer from that time. I went after him. He was scaring people on the street. The same street where the creature appeared. What time? The same time. And all the ufologists know about this hairy creature. Luis Petri was working on a story for Fantastico at that time.
Luis Petri, I know him. He's a friend.
He says, Birajara, tell Luis Petri we'll put in the hairy creature. Not if I do. You mention extraterrestrials, next it'll be werewolves. Yeah, they took it out.
And has Petri already told you that?
I haven't discussed this with Petri. Birajara talked about it and it's mentioned in Birajara's book, right? Pacatini, another ufologist, also discusses the case in a conversation with Petri about the hairy creature. Why wasn't the hairy creature aired?
Petri told him, yeah.
And we should discuss this with Petri later.
Interesting. Petri definitely knows you well. And he
dove headfirst into this subject in the past, right? And he distanced himself for that very reason. I agree with him too. Both he and Birajara distanced themselves from this subject because there were several outrageous things done by some ufologists. Pushing the idea that a creature is extraterrestrial, things like that. After my visit, I started rereading all the Varginha books because in all of them you have some researcher talking about some characteristic like the ones I mentioned here, which doesn't fit with being extraterrestrial and can't be true. So you ignore it?
That's where the research fails.
You have to come with the glass half full. You can't have the glass completely full.
What outrageous things did the Varginha ufologists do?
Heading toward the idea that only extraterrestrials can explain it. And I'm going to twist my data and my research and what the witnesses say to fit inside that box.
It's like a detective trying to prove a crime that never happened or happened differently?
That was the big mistake.
So what really happened then? Are there more than one creature?
There is more than one creature of more than one type. You have this account from '96, which, damn, is a big coincidence and nobody knew about it. It was kept there, in the archives, over at Birajara. And I get there and all the people who knew, those people who performed rituals, those very wealthy people from the region, told me, look, RONY left the ground. They came out from inside, from the ground, from inside the earth. And I'm going to look at what's in that whole area. A swamp.
Again, we're looking at the painting, The Garden of Earthly Delights. If you don't know it, you need to get to know this painting. It has a full description of what you're talking about.
A huge swamp right there, man. I tend to think that's it.
What are you doing about the Varginha case?
I'm going after those witnesses, those stories that were censored at the time in quotes because they didn't fit into that extraterrestrial box. And I've been going after the authorities to clear up these doubts. Why is this document here? With correction fluid, all the numbers from here on out.
Is anyone funding or supporting your research?
I have a YouTube channel today, right? I have supporters who help a lot to fund 30%. That's what I can get today. The rest comes from my own pocket, the trips, everything. But that 30% really helps. So, I mean,
if someone wants to help you, how can they do it?
Visit my channel, RONY VERNET channel. There's a members club and a private group for more direct discussions. I meet with them to discuss the subject more openly. with a large audience, it's hard to give enough attention or have productive discussions, right? And with a smaller group of followers there, we can have something more direct. That's the way I can contribute. Sometimes I also do events with them, right? I take them to the vigil, so there are these interactions.
I want to go to one of those vigils sometime, okay? Let's set it up. The case of the New Jersey UFOs, true or nonsense?
There was an unidentified flying object invasion. Everyone saw strange things. Picture a population that's used to the area. That's the busiest air traffic in the world. New York, New Jersey, right there. People are used to seeing what an airplane is, and suddenly people start reporting that they're seeing things that aren't airplanes. And then the Biden administration comes and says, look, yeah, this is really happening, but there's no indication that it's nefarious. I just use that adjective. It sounds strange because we don't usually use that adjective, right? So it really does exist, but it's not nefarious, at least not at first. And then he comes and says, look, these are things people are seeing, but they're meteors, they're airplanes, there's nothing there.
Did Biden say that?
Yeah, the Biden administration. Then Trump says during the election, when I'm elected, I'll reveal everything because I know the truth and they're lying. And what happens when Trump is elected? He says, I know what it is, but I can't say. Yeah, but don't worry, it's not our own government doing this.
Oh, it's not anything from outside Earth or from another dimension?
It's our research, but then congressmen say, no, this can't be verified. No, that's not right. This could also be new experiments from China or Iran, for example.
The congressman said that, so...
Okay, this shooting, but...
Is it China, Iran, the United States, or something else?
I spoke with New Jersey witnesses, saw the photos, and know what people saw. Phenomena emerged from regional lakes, prompting FBI and New Jersey police helicopters to arrive before the phenomenon departs. After the helicopter leaves, it returns, displaying intelligence and light phenomena like balls of light.
But it could be a Chinese drone spying.
It could be if it was something highly modern. What I think is happening there, maybe is you could have a genuine phenomenon, and that genuine phenomenon is attracting what? The police. It's attracting the authorities because I don't see any other way. Authorities said, the police at the time, who were the most transparent, we couldn't track it. Because this thing comes from the sea, comes from the ocean. It doesn't emit any physical signal. And when we go after it, it disappears. I find it hard to believe that they have technology that's that advanced.
The Chinese...
Or the Americans, or...
Even the Russians.
I have a hard time believing that they have it.
Do you believe it could really be an inexplicable phenomenon?
Supernatural, that's coming here. Why the American military? One of the reasons this is being revealed is that the number of sightings is growing exponentially, approaching military vehicles, especially nuclear warships and fighter jets. Pilots were silenced, unable to speak out or risk losing promotions. That's partly why this topic is now being exposed. That's the least exponential. Removing this taboo lets pilots speak. This is rising quickly, and I think New Jersey is involved. Also, what else is happening with these events? Police, FBI, intelligence agencies, and everyone in the airspace with their drones. So you have a mix of things, and then it becomes very difficult for you to evaluate with this mix, but I believe that's what it is, a mix.
And the Booga sphere in Colombia?
Every indication is that it's fake. Because you have a sphere that has several obvious crude manufacturing flaws with even handmade access. I can't admit that you have something highly technological, whether it's human or non-human, that has drawings, handmade engravings done crudely with gross mistakes. And there are other more recent videos that even show very thin fishing lines moving the object. So I believe that maybe they're hoaxes, drones moving those spheres.
So how do you differentiate a real phenomenon, or possibly real, from a fake phenomenon?
You have aircraft or luminous phenomena. You have these two types, right? They defy physics, flying with instant acceleration and passing through mediums, walls, and the ground. You have physiological effects on people. You have radiation emitted. You have injuries. You have burns. You have cuts that are made on people. Sometimes skin removal, like we saw in Operation Plate. They can camouflage themselves from electronic sensors, like thermal vision, by adjusting their temperature to avoid detection. They can suppress their electromagnetic signature so they don't appear on radar, so they can camouflage themselves. So, those are some of their characteristics. That's what differentiates a real anomalous phenomenon.
And what about the transient objects of the Swedish astronomer Beatrice Villarroel?
Beatrice did a very good job regarding this. She is looking at a time when there were no satellites in the sky. She's using astronomical plates, formerly photographic plates, and noticing stars that disappear. Stars and planets can't just vanish. The idea is that it's a technological object since no other astronomical explanation fits.
If it's technological, it's not spiritual, so it's from another planet.
When she says technological, does she mean intelligent? It's because, like I said, there's a whole direction for us to think it's extraterrestrial, made by movies, by documentaries. Could it be that this isn't intentional? If you take, opening a parenthesis here, if you take the story of Jack Parson, who was the brightest in the American space program, except for the Germans who came later with Bob Brown and others. He was an occultist. He practiced black magic together with Crowley. In fact, the story goes that he performed magic. Otherwise, the rocket wouldn't launch. There would be problems. Could it be that these guys didn't come and use the space program to hide their own origin? It would be a perfect effort for me. Manipulating people's ideas and direction.
And this interstellar object, the 3E Atlas, which is approaching us, is about 11 kilometers in diameter, and its origin is probably 7 billion years old. For you, does this have more to do with life beyond Earth, or is it just a physical matter?
The object is far away, so you don't have all the measurements you would need to rule out anomalies. What exists today? 99% of astronomers are saying it's a comet because it can only be a comet because there's nothing else in the world for it to be but a comet. It could never be an extraterrestrial spacecraft because that doesn't exist. There's already the Harvard envelope, the astrophysicists.
It's not you who's saying it, it's them.
It can't exist. The big problem with science today, a large part of science, is that you don't allow other hypotheses. It can't exist. You're acting like the ufologists who tried to explain everything as extraterrestrial.
Varginha, from Varginha.
You can't do that. You have to collect the data and interpret the data no matter where it leads you, even if it sounds absurd.
By the way, what do you call the Varginha E2? Since you don't believe in E2S, do you believe in interdimensional beings?
We called it non-human intelligence.
But from Varginha, there's no friendlier name.
A being, right? Beings, non-human creatures as well. Or an alien itself, right? Alien is pretty neutral. It doesn't really mean much. It's just because of the alien. Today, when people say alien in the United States, it can mean immigrant.
Yeah, in the United States it means immigrant. The guy is going to be deported, but...
In Brazil, if you say alien, people instantly think of green extraterrestrials and flying saucers, which complicates things. Maybe a being, a non-human creature, a non-human intelligence would be more accurate.
This thing here that I'm going to show you, I found this here. I used to live in a house in France in the middle of the forest. I found this here in the middle of the forest.
Wow.
What could that be?
If you give it to me, I can analyze this here. Yeah, in the lab.
It looks like something from outside the Earth.
It could be a meteorite, right? You can see that the sides are different here. It's like it's the outer part of it that collided and then it must have melted, right?
Impressive, isn't it? Yeah? We found it while digging in the garden, there in the ground.
I have a good story about that. You can give it to me later and I'll analyze it for you.
Do you think this object came from outside the Earth?
Maybe yes.
This one really is an ET.
It could be a meteorite that came from outer space, right? Also, right? It could
Be a piece of a spaceship.
It might be part of a spaceship or maybe something else. We have cases where, for example, in Ubatuba, we had spaceships ejecting materials. And with these materials, we can see that there is a difference because when you analyze the composition of the material, you can find out if it's a meteorite or not.
Because it looks like a rock, right? Yes, it doesn't look like something manufactured. Yeah, it...
Looks like a rock that was...
Side, look here at this other side. How is it? Yeah?
It's very...
Strange, right? Yeah.
Strange, isn't it?
I'll leave it with you. Tell me later. I will.
I will. I'm currently researching a story. In Rio Grande do Sul, a luminous phenomenon descended, emitting various colors, horrifying the farmer and his workers. When the phenomenon ended, 12 spheres remained. Arranged in a circle. He gave it to a famous host there in Rio Grande do Sul, now deceased, a folklorist and local television presenter. Is it Antonio Fagundes from Rio Grande do Sul? Not the actor, but the presenter from Rio Grande do Sul. And his son kindly gave me a piece of it. We are analyzing it in Brazilian labs and universities, and it's also being sent abroad. So, There are many mysteries that science can help with, at least to rule out mundane things, right?
And are you still working at Petrobras?
Yes, it's been over 13 years now.
Are you going to stay?
At first, yes, right? We need to support the family, right?
Let me tell you something. I wanted to invite you. Our show is called Entre Atos, right? Because there are 3 acts. Yes, we just finished the first act here, and I want to invite you to move on to the second one with us. Let's go. Let's. There's a little spot for you here.
That's cool.
If you're a bit hungry, we can eat. And I'll ask if you want something to drink. We're saying there's water, juice, wine, and beer.
Juice is fine.
Juice. Oh, there's grape juice. Can it be grape?
It can.
There's sparkling water too if you want.
I'm driving, otherwise I'd have a little wine, but today I'm driving, so
that's fine.
you have to avoid it.
Let me put it here for you. I wanted to ask you while we're here, shall we have this juice? We haven't talked about a story that's really powerful, but it's just that I've never stopped to study and read about it. The Chupacabra story. Yes.
What
is that, after all?
You have the anomalous mutilations, right? Anomalous mutilations would be the following. You have animals that are found with cuts, which are surgical cuts. These surgical cuts, there's no blood, there's nothing around them. They're as if they were cauterized. They're cut as if it was done with an electric scalpel. Sometimes organs are removed from these animals without any fluids. These animals usually don't show any reaction. And a kind of gel, an anomalous substance, is left there in those cuts. And there's something curious. They prefer to remove the reproductive parts of these animals, right? Besides eyes, parts of skin, jaw, tongue, things that don't make sense for a predator. I had cases now in Serra, which I visited near Sobral in 2023, where the affected animals were pigs. The pig is an animal that makes a lot of noise. It's very loud, right? When it's being attacked or threatened. The pigs were attacked at night. Sometimes they were taken from a 5-foot enclosure without leaving, without messing anything up. They were taken from there, cuts were made, some organs were removed, and they were left there without blood, without anything. And look at this interesting thing. The owners discovered that when they were shining a light, these phenomena would stop.
And what does that tell us?
Another interesting thing is that the phenomenon would stop when the light was gone. And when they stayed up in the trees, hiding up there with a shotgun, trying to find out what animal was attacking, this animal wouldn't show up.
That has everything to do with what you said before. It's that these phenomena don't want people who are aggressive.
Yes, and it's a phenomenon that it doesn't need to know that you're there. It knows you're there. It knows your intention. This happened when the guy tried to see something. He never caught what they thought was an animal, right? When they installed the light, it didn't appear. And some of the people who saw it rarely told me that it was a hybrid between a human and an animal. It was a hybrid of... Usually it's a hybrid of a donkey mule, which they called in Serra. A hybrid of a dog. That would be the werewolf, then it depends on what we're going.
To Greek mythology, we're going into the whole human tradition of werewolves, right? Beings like werewolves, right? Yes, that's it.
There's a United States branch of witnesses who saw unmarked black helicopters and people or beings descending. I don't know what those helicopters were doing. Then you ask, what's the point of that, right? We've said the phenomena can appear any way they want. I wouldn't be surprised if they sometimes show up differently just to confuse him. Military officials mention the famous triangles among the most commonly seen military artifacts worldwide. Today they're triangles, not the stevedores. They've changed a bit. Stevedores were in the 50s and 60s. Nowadays stevedores hardly ever appear anymore. It's mostly triangles and orbs. The triangles. Those government officials who worked in these programs said that the phenomena started to imitate or mimic, in their words, these phenomena. Mimicking the military. How are they different? Theirs is silent, does aggressive moves, while ours is more
The chupacabra, Varginha ET, and similar phenomena are in the same category.
Interestingly, it acts much like black magic rituals involving these animals. The cuts, the removal of organs, sometimes it's as if circles are found around them. So it's as if some kind of ritual is being performed by these beings.
Does that lead to black magic? If so, how?
I believe that what would be prayer, the good part, prayer to God, for example, would it be a way for you to connect? Prayer helps you connect with the divine. What would black magic be? An offering or a sacrifice, an offering to certain beings that in some mythologies are even gods, right? Other gods. I think performing this ritual connects you in a similar way, just differently. Maybe in a negative way. So maybe these beings somehow need or want this energy in order to manifest themselves. They want you to feed off of it. It's the only hypothesis that makes sense to me. Sometimes I believe they come themselves and do the work.
Themselves? What do you mean compared to what?
The beings themselves materialize and perform this ritualistic work, this sacrifice themselves. Now, why do they themselves show up and do it from time to time? How do they gain the strength for that?
And what do they want after all? What do they want?
I believe there's something very deep about this. I believe these beings want the negatives. They want to divert humanity from its path. They want to mock of the Christian religion. They put ideas in people that are contrary to the Christian religion many times. They want to. Sometimes they get into your head and will induce a person to have depression, and then many people take their own lives when that happens. That was the case of Commander Yorangelando. He retires as a colonel. In 1997, he gives his first interview to Fantastico, then soon after commits suicide. And a lot of people thought it was the men in black who did that to him, to silence him. I don't believe that. He already had personal problems, he already had a history of depression, and he already had a history of what? Of contact with the beings. Implant?
Implant. He had one.
Implant in the arm. I believe that the implant is a way for this connection to become permanent. He was scared to remove the chip implant.
It's just a new method since there was no chip before. These are the changes that occur.
I'm pretending I'm tech savvy and putting a chip in you so we can communicate. And back then it was a little piece of stone. It's a way to mark someone and maintain that connection. Another person from Operation Saucer says she also has a chip. She was left with a permanent after effect, and today she doesn't speak things with... She seemed to have brain damage. There's no test, but that's how it appears, right? And when she says something like, if I visited that witness there in Para, and when she says something that kind of makes sense, in quotes, right, that we can understand. She says, they put a chip in me, I belong to them, and one day they'll come back for me.
Ah, that's what people believe is going to happen, yes.
And I believe that people are being controlled maybe by these beings. Often, causing harmful thoughts can push someone to ultimately consider ending their own life. Maybe that's what happened with Hollanda, right? He had problems, but they kept getting worse. He took his own life then, and many people I've spoken with have reported this. After contacting these beings, I became severely depressed. Wait, are you still in contact? Yeah? They give me proof and special abilities.
Were you depressed? No.
Not that I noticed.
Like that. Are you afraid that this could still happen to you? Of course, of course.
You take care of yourself so it doesn't happen.
What happens when I go to Virginia? What happens there at my house with the poltergeist phenomenon? Many have this, but most don't know about it. But in the movie, in '77, Steven Spielberg, if you watch the first scenes of the abduction of a little boy in Poltergeist 77, 78, 77. Close Encounters of the Third Kind isn't in Poltergeist, since Poltergeist is also his, right? Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that's extraterrestrial, right? First scene, the boy is abducted, what happens? Poltergeist. Poltergeist phenomenon, pots moving, toy cars, and then the abduction happens. That's the most common thing in the world.
That's the most common thing, not in the movie, in reality. In reality.
Do you see this at home? Yes.
And
When? Where's your house? Is it in Virginia or my room?
not in my house. When I returned from Virginia the next day,
City is it?
it's Rio de Janeiro, here in Rio, in Barra da Chuca. So when do I go back home? The day after Virginia, I visited the ritual sites without any prayers or protection, something I do now but didn't back then. I'm talking to a Virginia witness via video conference. My bed was made, but when I look back, It's scratched up with various symbols and a face drawn on it.
Is there a photo of that?
Yes, there is. I'm not going to send it to show off because I don't think that's right, but I'll show it to you. In person, there's a face resembling a human with an outline similar to a goat's head. You have perfectly drawn geometric shapes, which would be impossible, I don't know, for my cat to make.
No, that wasn't a cat. Based on what you said, it's possible.
Scratched, there are certain parts that were done with such aggression that it cut the threads of the quilt that was there. Then I thought, wait, is there something here? That was very important to me because I had a lot of resistance to the idea that the spiritual world could interfere with the material world, for example. I believe today that this happened.
It feels like they're trying to send you a sign.
I believe so.
And what is that sign?
I believe the sign in this case was to scare me. Maybe so I would stop the research.
Let me ask you something. When you're on watch there, what do you eat?
Usually if it's really, really cold, we even open a little wine in moderation, right? Today we won't open any because there's nothing to see, right? You drink wine, lose sleep, and see nothing? Sometimes a little wine if it's really cold, but usually it's just cold, right? What else? We're here. Almost in a vigil-like environment, so...
Let's eat something. You've gone a long time without eating anything. I'll take this chance to thank our partner Jotra, who sent this to us as he always does. Everything is wonderful, and what's cool is it's all Brazilian, all made in Brazil. There's amazing jam, another one, and different cheeses. So, we're in the mood for the vigil, yes. And suddenly, while you're eating, does something show up or not? Ah, has it ever happened? Put it closer to you.
Eating like this by... let me put it here. Eating like this, as far as I remember, no. You're focused here when you eat, right? On the cheese, for example.
Right? You won't see anything, right? You won't see...
Many people say that, but sometimes they don't notice anything simply because they're not paying attention or don't want to.
It's because what you said is impressive. Cristiano, whom I mentioned, described me precisely. He used to say the ship, he talked about the ship, it would come, stay here, then leave. Yes, exactly that. It's a strange and fast movement, right? Yes.
And that's what I have to say. The intention, it matters a lot. For you to observe phenomena, and from what I've researched, if you don't plan to see something, you won't see it.
And that goes for religion too, right? When you don't want religion, it disappears from you, right?
Faith means believing in something, right? Otherwise, you won't get any results.
In that sense, do you also need to have faith in these phenomena?
That's a bit dangerous because depending on your faith, you might attract something that's not good. And this phenomenon is highly manipulative, so you could also be falling into deception, so you have to be very careful with what you're asking for. There's a case, we talked about Fatima, we talked about Germany, there's a case that happened in Serra in '94. In Baturité, witnessed by thousands, a dance of the sun also occurred in Serra do Baturité, Ceará.
The dance of the sun is not an indigenous movement, it's a dance of the sun itself?
It's not the sun itself, but it's something very similar to the sun. That's why they say it would be the dance of the sun with the clouds, with the mist, the sky flickering. And it was curious because both the Christian religious people and the ufologists went to the same place, and then the religious people were joking around, and when the ufologists arrived, they started saying, see, it's all UFOs. That caused a clash. You can't imagine what happened, though there was even a psychic. But it happens. The church does not acknowledge the events in Baturité, even though the phenomena were real. There are remarkable photos of these occurrences.
What could the church recognize it as?
The messages that were being delivered, according to what he said, that it was Our Lady, this seer, were not messages that were entirely appropriate for Christian knowledge at the time. So, the priests at the time actually brought up the subject, but they covered everything up.
Do you think this is part of that box problem? Because it didn't fit into a message? The priest dismissed it.
I think so. Maybe it was a manipulative phenomenon. Why? Did they find out? This psychic was accused of harassing followers several times. When these events occurred, dozens of snakes and reptiles were attracted to the area. Look at that. All the birds and dogs would flee.
It looks like an apocalyptic scene.
So I believe these are some indications that the phenomenon wasn't a positive one.
Are you listening?
Isn't it playing?
Oh yes.
Hello, hey, RONY is here. He's here. No, I don't know you, no. Saying he's from somewhere else. For him to do. He doesn't want technology. He doesn't want any secrets. He wants you to make a dinner. He wants to know what dinner is like here. You can do it.
Let's go then.
Hey, no, don't do that. You're going to do it. He said that if you don't, he might even come in. You can do it, yeah.
Let's go. We have no choice, but what should we do? Well, okay, all right then. So call again, okay. He told you to make an egg, man. I don't get it. An egg is a symbol of life in many religions, right? You can make it?
Can I make scrambled eggs from...
Any way you want. He said to use just one egg.
Let me help you here. Damn, man.
It's just a first test. Let your hand go. Let your hand relax. First, I'm going to make one by hand for myself. Yeah, let's go. That's it. Let's see if I still remember.
Look, be careful because the request is you can leave him, right?
I wouldn't joke about that.
There's a spatula.
It better be a good dinner, right? There's a little knife here, a fork, a spatula.
It might be a fork. That's better for me.
That's your technique. I don't know it.
It's because otherwise it turns. I'm picky with eggs, man. And if you put the whole egg in, it turns a lot of times. I don't have to do it that way. Do you think others can? It just becomes a scrambled sliced egg, right? Uh-huh.
And yours? How is it? It's going to be...
It's going to be soft. It's going to be tender.
You're not going to put butter.
Combine here with a drizzle of olive oil. Let's get started.
A drizzle of olive oil. Wait, come here.
And so it doesn't turn into a chopped up fried egg, I usually do it like this.
If you want to baste here, then stir.
Without stopping.
At the vigil, do you cook? Do you usually bring a little stove or not?
Usually not. We bring it ready.
In the past, the Serra da Beleza region, it was wilder. Uh-huh. So people used to camp out, right? And then you can call. Do you want
medium heat, or you can...
It can be medium heat. This heat is too
strong?
Okay, it can be medium. People had to camp since it was nearly impossible to get there due to all the dirt.
And now how do you do it? And now the...
We have to keep moving here without stopping. No, I...
Asked about Serra da Beleza.
And now we have infrastructure, right? To get there.
It's there.
Or there's an inn where you can stay nearby. Today you have all the infrastructure. Things have improved a lot. We have our partner there, Arnaldo, there at Beleza da Serra. He provides us with a restaurant, and there are some... what's the name of the...
His restaurant?
It's Beleza da Serra in Serra da Beleza. There are some. Lower it a bit, okay? And there are some facilities there that we can use where it's much more comfortable to keep watch than last year, right? We're keeping it simpler and more comfortable. We just bring what we need for the night, right?
How many people do you go with when you do it with the group?
Usually it depends. Sometimes there are events there. Sometimes we organize some events with lectures, for example. Then about 60 people go for...
Example?
50 people. Now, if it's something more private, it's usually 10 people, 5. Sometimes I do it alone too, just me. Arthur, who is a senior ufologist, our friend from there, does it too. But you said...
I understood that you weren't a ufologist.
Or are you...
Do you still use that word?
I don't mind being called a ufologist. Because people are used to calling those who deal with this subject ufologists, right? I don't mind. I don't call myself a ufologist because I already have my own perspective. I fulfill what I think is the role of... Can you give me just a moment? Which is... What do I think a ufologist is? What do I think the role a ufologist has to play is? It's the work they do best, which is investigative work, which is investigative journalism. They do that very well. To find out what's happening and interview witnesses, the ufologist is...
A journalist in some way?
He's just stating a fact, right? Interviewing witnesses to learn what was happening. And then what? These guys do this better. And I do this job too. Now, when you collect the report, the data, what's going to happen? You have to interpret that data there. You need equipment, science, and published articles for that, and there are already people doing this. That's what science is. So, a lot of people ask if ufology will become a science. I don't think so. No, it doesn't even need to, because sciences are already established. You just need to adapt it so that people can do science.
But you don't need to have a college of ufology, for example. There is.
I don't think so. I think you need to have it in the sciences that research this subject, maybe a specialization within physics, a specialization within anthropology, something like that. And then you will have, yes, these sciences researching this event, but I don't think there is one. Something that is, our egg is sticking here, soon it might come off maybe.
That's right.
Actually, this wasn't expected, was it? It seems like this is an anomalous phenomenon.
Let's see, will it come out? That it won't come out, right?
We should have fought. I thought so. I'm going to blame the frying pan, okay? Production.
Go ahead.
I'll say the frying pan wasn't helpful.
We have to change it.
It has to be a non-stick one, which we don't have. There are great non-stick ones out there. You don't even need oil.
Do you want to add more oil there? No.
Is it okay now? It should be fine. Lower it a little.
Yeah.
And that's it, man. I don't think we need any more additional sciences, right? Maybe just some preparation for the sciences that already exist.
Physics is the most important science for this argument.
Physics is the most important science, and people's awareness also plays a key role. Philosophy, anthropology, theology. We mainly discussed theology today, right? So I think there has to be this kind of connection with people regarding the phenomena of these sciences, right?
When you do the vigil, you don't light a bonfire. There's no incense, nothing like that.
No, there's none of that. Sometimes I say a prayer. That's right, there in the Atacama Desert. We recently conducted an experiment by taking someone who claimed to have contacts to the Atacama Desert to do this experiment, right? Our experiment failed, but something still happened. Look.
It stayed. Let's eat what we have.
Shall we? It almost became one.
Are you adding salt or pepper? Can you use something else? There's rosemary back there.
Look. Where's the salt? Is the salt here? Just twist it.
Just a little bit, but there's really not much left. People starved during the vigil, so...
Let's just eat in here. If it were a vigil, we'd do the same.
Just add a little more. It's already out, like this. Just a little more, just to get a bit... That's it, guys. Go ahead and eat. I was holding back here. Otherwise, there wouldn't be anything left, right? So, like, preparing the religions that already exist to research a phenomenon that they don't currently recognize as real, right?
Yeah, but look, there are fancy dishes these days that are just tiny samples. Is yours going to be in that category? What do you think about adding something on top of the salami? You like salami?
That'll make it more filling, right?
You like it?
I like it.
I like it. It'll look nice. Want to set it up here? Let's go.
Give me a little spoon. Is there one?
A little spoon here, look.
Erase it, go. Done! At least it tastes good.
Right? I think this idea is going to work, huh? It's better than calling Make a little spatula. Make two. It's better to make two. Make two here for us. Okay, right? So is that okay?
Do you want to put it on top?
Doing this vigil will make us hungry, huh? Come on, this is going to be a problem.
On top, let's go.
Not pleasant, right?
Let's show it there. Let's see here. Look there, look.
Look, the art. It's going to be a piece of work that a 6-year-old did. Look.
It looks nice. It looks nice. Come on, did you hear that?
Could it be them?
Just them, isn't it them?
Tiny, so small. How can I imagine? Oh no, more people, but they're not really people. How can 3 eat if there are only 2? Are you complaining?
Are you?
Are you scared of abduction? Maybe a little. Want to be abducted? Not at all.
You can speak directly, of course. There's more contact. Speak directly, please.
How is this? Can we negotiate this? Well, I'll wait for us to start praying.
There's no negotiation.
No, there isn't. The guy is with...
Hunger.
And he's going...
So let's finish this. Let's do it this way. Let's end this there. Let's prove it real quick.
Which one is mine?
Yours is the prettiest, right? Are you the host?
Let's get out of here soon.
It looks good. It's okay, at least. Just a little bit, please. It's a bit ugly, but...
It's okay. No, it's okay.
Let's do something.
Even not to.
There's not enough time to get there. Let's go to our third act. I love you. I love talking in the car. I think that...
Everything changes.
So how is it? If you arrive, for example, there at Serra da Beleza, what do you... How do you set up your equipment there?
Usually, I like to arrive before sunset. And then I set up, position the cameras. I bring a night vision camera, a thermal camera, a professional photo camera, and sensors, right? Magnetic field sensors, radiation sensors, radio. And then we start the vigil and observation. I, like many people, enjoy sitting, you know. We bring chairs, but I personally prefer to stand. I keep moving around and watching because if you focus on one spot, you might miss a phenomenon. So usually I like to stand there watching things. It's exhausting since we sometimes stay for hours, but it depends on the audience. I kept watch, having already spent 12 hours there, but when the crowd is large, some people can't manage it. We stay 2 or 3 hours as possible. Cold weather, especially in winter, makes it hard for people in many places to tolerate the low temperatures. It really depends on each person's endurance, but that's usually what happens.
I have some photos here. Let me get them.
What was this photo here, huh?
That was exactly the phenomenon at Serra da Beleza, right? I was down here and this is the golden light. This is the first photo I took when I noticed the phenomenon on the camera. When I looked up, it was right there, wasn't it? Covering the whole cross.
And then comes this one here.
Yeah, and then a photo I took. There's a kind of mist around the cross. You see some shiny things around the cross, and of course the cross itself is illuminated. So this is an unexplainable.
Take the opportunity to lie down a little more. You're almost sitting up. Just relax there, relax.
What's up? Under the cross, some structures appeared that aren't normally there. You'll notice black shapes and lights that don't belong on this cross. That was a second event there from the photos I took after this light started to go down.
And here was the end.
This is already an enlargement of this one here, the first one. But what's interesting here is what you notice about it. You notice that this light has a little tip up here, see? Yeah? Here, there's a head at the cross's center, but it's not part of the cross. To me, this reveals how the cross materializes in a round shape, continually forming as the being does. That's the interpretation I have of this photo.
And this illustration here for you is a perfect description.
I wouldn't say perfect because they don't. One interesting thing, it seems like they changed shape. When I look at them here, they were fluid, but they had arms, they had a torso, they had a head. I didn't see legs because they were crouching. And when they floated, it was like this. Black sheets, specters passing by. It's not perfect, but it reminds me of what I saw. When they started making revolutions around the cross, it looked just like this.
Let me make you a suggestion. Yes, let's close our eyes. Yes, let's go back to that day. Can you remember exactly what you saw in front of that cross?
Yes.
How much?
I was taking a picture. I am
Taking a picture.
of the cross. The sky is beautiful. Starry and new moon sky, so there's no other light except the light from the sky. I'm taking a picture of the cross, which looks beautiful with stars in the background. And now I saw a picture here that has a golden to orange glow in it. In the picture, I think it's a problem with the camera. And I look up, and I'm looking at the cross that's there. And that light looks like a sun, but the strange thing is I'm able to look at this sun. This sun doesn't burn my eye.
And
It's a giant thing. It doesn't just cover the cross, but the surroundings as well. And I'm going to keep going. I'm taking pictures here so I can document this. I'm going to grab the binoculars to take a look. The light went out, so I'm going to check it since I can't see it now. And now, through the binoculars. It's a terrible thing because I can see two beings that are crouched down. You can tell they're beings because they have heads, arms, and torsos. They're crouched down as if they're hiding from me, putting their heads and bodies behind the cross and then showing up again. And they're very ugly, very monstrous. It's a horrible thing. Take it off.
My doubt.
I'm really scared right now. And really frightened because it seems like they know I'm here. I can clearly see that they're looking in my direction and hiding. So I turned the camera to video mode. I didn't even want to adjust anything because I wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. So I turned the camera to video mode and start filming. The last thing I remember is that I didn't want to look at that through the binoculars anymore. Man, really ugly, really scary. The last thing I remember is that they were circling around that cross. And crossing the tall 8-meter cross repeatedly, they keep crossing paths. It sometimes seems like they're dragons crossing paths in those drawings and images. But they're entirely black, like black sheets crossing.
to you, were they demons?
I think so, because from the context of it, it was a time of great suffering in Brazil and worldwide. And they had a monstrous face, and it seemed like they were playing with me, trying to put me, feeding on the fear I was feeling, trying to make me uncomfortable. And it seems like them making these revolutions, yeah. It felt like they were mocking me, trying to scare me more and show off, right? So I believe that maybe that's what the church calls a demon. That would be the closest I could maybe have seen.
You prayed before starting the vigil.
No, I had no worries then. Considering that, at that time, I just thought they were beings. Aliens, right? Advanced beings. I had only seen lights before that. So I had no concerns at all about this spiritual matter or anything like that. And after this incident, this encounter, that's when I started to look a bit more, maybe, at this interdimensional side.
Have you opened your eyes yet?
Not yet.
They're still closed. Why do you think they showed up at the cross?
I think the cross. I think that everything we have in material terms here has a meaning in this parallel world, in this spiritual dimensional world.
And
the opposite is also true. Everything we have in terms of feelings here can generate something material in this dimensional world. So I think that the cross in this world, in this parallel reality, can actually represent a door. a crossing between different paths of our world and this other world.
Different dimensions.
Different dimensions.
A portal if.
Crossing, and maybe this artifact, which is the cross, is a material means for us to connect precisely to this world and perform what they call evocations, summoning these beings.
It's been at least 2,000 years that some people have thought like you. I brought a book here called Piste Sophia. It's the wisdom of faith. This is a Gnostic book.
It's Coptic, I saw it.
It's written in Coptic, but it's a book. Those who followed Jesus were Christians, but it's a kind of Christianity that wasn't accepted. But what impresses me is the coincidence between what they thought and what you're telling me so many times. And the coincidence, too, I always say with the Gospels, because so many times we hear about Jesus as a being of great light, an enlightened being. That expression is not by chance. And the idea of dimensions that you're talking about, it appears here in this book. It's a fully Christian book with no intent against Christianity. Actually, it's the opposite. Here comes Jesus, humanity's savior. And there are moments when they talk, for example, about various vehicles of salvation on many levels, in many dimensions. I have in front of me a passage from the first chapter of Christ and Sophia Jesus. And Jesus hadn't told the disciples about the whole expansion of the emanations from the treasury of light, nor about its orders, not in the sense of commandments, but orders as in hierarchies. How did they expand? Nor had he told them about their saviors. And then this idea of multiple vehicles of salvation, which comes from the Gnostics, who are the Christians from the first centuries. And he continues, and what are they like according to the order of each one? Hadn't he also said, who guards or which guardian was in charge of each portal of the treasury of light? He also hadn't told yet about the region of the Savior, twin. Who is the son of the Son? And we keep going. Through a world that is Christian, that believes in various dimensions which are called aeons, Paulo Coelho, in the song he made with Raul Seixas, talked about the new aeon. They are referring to this view that there are several dimensions. There is a place called Pleroma, equivalent to the kingdom of heaven, which is exactly Plato's philosophy, which said that we are immortal souls, that we go with the gods toward this place of immortality. And everything you're telling me, is it related to this? When I said it, did you understand? Yes.
I truly believe we're going to have survival of what we now call consciousness, right? After leaving the body, we will have another experience. And maybe we will go exactly to this world where these other beings are, or depending on our evolution, maybe to other worlds, right? Until we reach, as you said, the heavens finally. Maybe it's not immediate. Maybe we're experiencing multiple transitions on different levels and just don't know it. Today, some orbs are believed to be spirits of Colombo slaves' descendants. That's what people say, right? That if you get attached to material things, you stay there, stuck in this world, you get attached to gold.
It has to do with the idea of karma.
Right, it has to do with the idea of karma, right? So, I think that depending on the level of evolution you have in this world, it can be a big test to see if you can overcome this here or if you'll stay stuck holding on. It's what I say about temptations. Maybe temptations are actually tentacles trying to tie you down here in this world, even though you have a whole life, a whole experience to follow. So maybe that's what's happening. Maybe from this reality, these beings might somehow be materializing here.
And then everything we're talking about here, we go through Buddhism, through Spiritism, Hinduism, Christianity.
And Islam, which we haven't discussed, also has the jinns. The jinns inspired the genie in the lamp legend, right? That's what happens. What you're saying is that you have a sacred artifact that you rub and a being will come out and you'll make a wish. That's exactly what happens in many cases. When you seek contact, what you're actually doing is rubbing the lamp. A being will appear, able to take any form to persuade you, and you can make a good wish or a bad wish, and it can turn against you, depending on what that wish is, right? And the jinn, of course, will use techniques to deceive you, to manipulate you. You make a wish, but he'll want something even greater in return. That would be more or less an Islamic view of the jinn, who can also, of course, be positive. But if you have a materialistic intention, an intention against ethics, against integrity, maybe you could get tricked by those guys.
I'd like to suggest that our last reflection be once again with our eyes closed. Yes, you've already told me everything you objectively believe, that your research led you to believe what the phenomena are.
I wanted you to
go further, that you would travel with me so you could tell me what you wish these phenomena were, how you would like to interact with them, if you could get close to them.
I would first like to have the discernment to identify the intention of these phenomena, because I would never want to approach if there was a risk of it being something negative. And what if I could attract only the positive? Maybe... What I would ask is, how is our physical reality constructed? What worlds exist? How are they linked to ours? Why are these beings coming here? And how do they travel between worlds? Where are we headed? Where did we come from? Those would be the questions.
These are the existential questions that humans have been asking since they lived, moving from cave to cave.
Yes, I think that's the great quest we have today. There are a lot of people seeking wealth, material things, but I think this should be our main quest, right? To understand reality. I think physics and philosophy go hand in hand, and of course with theology, as we mentioned here, they go together in that direction.
And at the end of all this, there is a light.
I'm optimistic that yes, and maybe the light at the end will depend a lot. If we're truly seeking light in this life, maybe this existence is a test exactly for us to see if we're ready, not to move on to the next stage, right? RONY?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your company tonight. It was fantastic, huh? Thank you. Thank you.